and learning that you need to either become more entrepreneurial in your thinking, to become more understanding of what entrepreneurship skills bring to a career, or to decide to set up your own business, we can do those. So we do three things. We help people learn about entrepreneurship, we help people develop entrepreneurial ideas, and we help launch entrepreneurial startup businesses. And the whole idea is that enterprise should be available for everybody. So we have our mission is for enterprise for all, and that people can use that knowledge to take control of their futures, whatever they may be. Could I have the next slide, please? So typically, if you think about entrepreneurship, you probably would associate it with people like Tesla, Facebook, some of the larger tech companies, and then some of the more traditional entrepreneurs you may see on TV, on Dragon's Den or The Apprentice. And they don't always give a good view of entrepreneurship, because often it's seen as very money oriented, and it's often seen as people being put after profit. But what we want to do is say that's not the case. The case is entrepreneurial thinking is a mindset, and the mindset is used for whatever you think it's appropriate for. So it could be a business issue, and often is, but it could be a way you address a unique situation. So a social problem, bringing people out of poverty, getting a particular thing sorted out in terms of wherever you live or work. So basically, entrepreneurship at its core is about identifying a problem, seeing a solution, and then building a structure around that to solve that issue. So typically, as I say, you may think of these people, but I'm going to show you later a group of university-based people who've had their mindset changed and developed and are now doing different things, as a more practical example. Could I have the next slide, please? So why would you think that understanding more about entrepreneurship and thinking is important? So there's a concept, we belong to a group of academics in a global context who are enterprise educators, and the feedback they get from employers and various other people that they consult with is that there's an expectation now that, of course, you will go to an institution, you will leave with a degree, or you'll become knowledgeable in the science or the business or with an MBA, but there needs to be more. And this concept is called work ready plus, i.e., I know my engineering discipline, I know my business discipline, I know my finance discipline, but for employers now, who are often small, innovative companies, there has to be a bit more. And having entrepreneurial skill sets is not necessarily going to get you the role, but what it will do is possibly help you to show that you are work ready plus. So, I mean, this is a big statement and probably normally would be interesting anyway, but I think having the last 12 months, we all know the future is uncertain, and we've all had to adapt to challenges, whether that's lockdown, social distancing, or the way we think and operate, working online. So the future is uncertain, and there's a saying that the only way to know about the future is to create it. And what that means is, in your space, in your career, in your interest area, you might be the person to make that change happen. You might be the person who, like Airbnb, changed the way people think about accommodation. You might be the people who take forward ideas to change things socially or environmentally. But to do that, you need a set of other skills. And these are things like design thinking. Design thinking is a a way of thinking that helps you design a particular service or product or solution. And a lot of it is based around what's called the lean startup. And this is a concept that was created around the software industry. And the idea is that you create something by validating it all the time with your customers or your stakeholders or your beneficiaries, and you actually work with them and you use their feedback to build and design the solution to the problem that you're trying to solve. So innovation in business, in social aspects, or especially in public services, is something that is increasingly going to change. And a lot of companies now have chief innovation officers, or innovation is part of their R&D. So this is increasingly becoming important in the workplace and in different areas. You need to learn how to identify problems, and more importantly, you need to learn how to understand them, understand why those are occurring, and then have solutions to that. And that's about critical thinking. So some examples of that would be if you saw in your industry that there was a lot of waste in a particular production process, you might research into how other companies are dealing with that. You might look into things like the circular economy principle. And then you might say, a good way of doing this is to revise the way we take our end products and then we repurpose it into something else. It could be a lot of people in the rubber industry take the rubber crumb matting and that goes into safety products for children's playgrounds, so when they fall they don't hurt themselves. Or in the soap industry, a lot of the other products are redone and repackaged, and then what they do is they're given away to people to improve their health and well-being. You learn perseverance. So this is what we call mental toughness, and that's about when you see a problem, you use those critical thinking skills to tackle it. You use your constant ability to look at a problem and work as a team and analyze it. And the more you do this, the more it becomes intuitive. And it doesn't have to be a huge problem. It can be something very simple. And often that is the best place to start. And sometimes it's good to do it hypothetically. So there's lots of exercises online about how to. One of the simplest ways is what you'll find an exercise with a pen or a pencil, and it's called features and benefits. And you can go through that and say, what are the features of a pen compared to a pencil, and what are the benefits? Like a pen runs out of ink, a pencil won't. You just need to sharpen it. And there's all sorts of different thinking skills you develop around that. And it's all about turning what initially seems like a negative situation into a positive. And when you're in the workplace, that's increasingly becoming important because companies don't often have huge amounts of time, or they don't have a lot of staff. If you're in a startup or a small business, there's an expectation that you will have a range of skills and are able to tackle a range of issues. So again, these skills are really transferable into a number of different areas. And basically, as it said, the future needs students who can make a difference and add value. The pace of change, the rate of change, the way that we need to attend to things like environmental degradation, climate change, use of resources, people being brought out of hardship, they all need people with new ideas and fresh ideas. And if you've already had a grounding in that through your studies, undergrad, postgrad, PhD, or even MBA, that makes it much better that you can go out there and make a difference and add value. And obviously in the context of where you work, it makes work more meaningful to you. So if you were choosing between a company that did a certain thing but didn't have environmental concern against one that did and proactively worked on making its environment better or making its workforce supply chain better, then it adds value over and above just what the salary is and what the benefits and conditions are. And the other thing is you learn to network with people and build connections. Everybody exists in a network. Every idea has a network, every innovation has a network. And there's never been an easier and better time to be able to connect with people, not just locally, but globally through LinkedIn and the other platforms. But it takes a focus to do that. You have to know who are the people you want to build your team around, who are the influencers you want to build in, what skill set do you need, where do those people hang around. So by being able to build a team and network with people, and by networking, I don't just mean going in a room and talking to someone and shaking the hand and then moving on to the next person. I mean, building really, really meaningful and valuable where each person has something to give and something to offer, and those go on to be long term. And that could be with your peers in university, it could be with people you meet during your course, it could be with alumni, it could be with companies that you go out and intern with. All the time you need to be building up your network and knowing what you want to get from that relationship. Not just get, but what can you give as well, because it's important, it's reciprocal. And then finally, you build upon business ideas that are innovative and creative. And these might not be your own. Often they're not. The people who come up with the game-changing idea, like Elon Musk or many of the other entrepreneurs, are rare. But they still need people who have that mindset. They still need people to implement the idea, to make the SpaceX rocket, to make the electric car, to make the game-changing technology. So entrepreneurs know that they need networks, they need people, they need to motivate and communicate. So again, these skills can help you above and beyond necessarily. You don't need to be an entrepreneur, but you can be entrepreneurial and work for an entrepreneurial organization. Could I have the next slide, please, Nelly? So what would you learn? What skills will you learn? So I'll talk in the context of what we teach at Masood Entrepreneurship Centre. So the first thing we help you learn about is problem identification. So it's, as I say, a lot of this is about mindset, and it's about going through the process of looking at problems in a different way. And often this is by looking at what are the ways you could solve that. You know, is it something that you can change instantly, or does it take time? Can you do this yourself, or do you need to build other people in? Can you solve the problem by bringing in an alternate solution, or does it require the removal of particular problems in solving that solution? So our courses help you to think through and instill that problem solving, identification and skills. So we have things like shaping ideas for the market. That's all about how you find a solution, a problem, and then provide a solution, and how you shape that solution up. Do you use technology for it? Do you use different innovations? How do you provide it so that it's accessible to people? How do you provide it in a cheap way? So it's really all about using your mindset and focusing on that. Second thing is team building. we have competitions and events that are all around team building. Every year we have our ideas competition called Bright Ideas. That's about team building and building an idea and then building the team around it to solve it. Everybody does different things. Someone does the marketing, someone does the operations, someone does the finance, and the cumulative efforts are that they put a good business idea forward. And then it's about goal setting. How much money do you need? How many customers do you need, etc. And then if you have different views, how do you bring those together so that you're all focused on the same direction? Finance. Finance is essential in any business, and finance often is one thing that people don't focus on. But finance is just another way of articulating what resources you need and what are the risks. So when you write your business plan, you need to transfer that into numbers. Those numbers tell you what the requirement is around how many products you need to sell, or how much money you need to raise from the bank or from venture capital. And what it does is it just gives you an idea of how you will approach that business or approach that problem and what resources you need. So the better you can articulate how you need money and what that money means, and that managing that money and making that money efficient so that you deliver the result is a really important skill. And then finally, innovation and creativity. Again, it's back to this mindset thing and having the ability to see solutions and what we call product market fit. So basically, product market fit is where you have an idea for a product, you see the market, and then you make it perfectly aligned to that. Or you could also have network market fit, where you have your network needs to fit your market. Who are your customers? Who are your suppliers? Who are your people that make things operate? So being creative and coming up with creative solutions is exemplified perhaps through things like Airbnb, where people were persuaded that by giving space in their home was a way of making money, but also solving a problem for other people who wanted a more authentic place to stay in a city or town. Uber, with its ride sharing business, rather than being a taxi company, it was a ride sharing platform. More people joined Uber who were not taxi drivers than were, and equally people knew they could rely on the taxi, they were safe, there was no transaction of cash putting them at risk, and they could rate people as well. So these were all examples of innovation and creativity in an existing market that had never changed. It was just that people came along and said, we can make that difference, we can say something, and we can change that. Could I have the next slide, please? So let me tell you a few stories about Manchester people. So this is Uzma. Uzma was studying her PhD in biochemistry, and she went to a number of our classes on becoming what we called a fellow. This is where PhDs worked on solutions and looking at markets where we created university research and wanted to see if it was worthwhile developing it and commercializing it. So Uzma worked on a range of different things, from looking at customers, reaching out to markets, seeing if there was a market in the environment or biochemistry or other areas, and then coming back with reports that helped us make a decision as to whether or not to invest in a patent, invest in setting up a business to market that technology. So when Uzma had finished, she decided that she didn't want to be a research scientist anymore. She wanted to combine her expertise in biochemistry with a more business-focused career. So she went to work for a company called Octopus Ventures, which I'm sure many of you heard of. Octopus Energy, that's part of the same company. And now she leads part of the investment team there. There's a click through to a really good article about Uzma and where she feels she benefited from entrepreneurial skills and going forward. Next slide, please. So Luke joined our master's course, and he wanted to develop his entrepreneurial skills to do a business for improving the environment based on the circular economy principle, where all the materials you use in a product are then recycled and repurposed at the end, so there is no waste. And Luke spent time developing his skills on business planning. He learned how to put financial forecasts together. He built a model around how he and others would act as consultants to businesses that wanted to improve their environmental credentials and reduce waste. But because Luke became quite prominent and did talks and other things, he was approached by the local economic development authority in Manchester and asked would he use his knowledge and skills to help local companies improve their processes and reduce waste. And he actually negotiated a role there, which he did for a number of years. And then the Cooperative Group, which is a very large retail group in Manchester, employed him, and he is now responsible for all the decisions around how stores are repurposed so that there is no waste in the way they design materials, etc. And when you think they have over 6,000 stores across the UK, that's a fairly significant role he's in. So that's just to give an example where somebody had the intention of being in business, but eventually decided their skills are better applied to help other businesses. Next slide, please. And then we have Lewis. So Lewis actually did his undergrad over in I don't know if any of you know, called the Royal Northern College of Music. It's on Oxford Road, next to the business school. Lewis studied a BA honours in music there, and then joined the Masood Entrepreneurship Centre, where he wanted to develop an interest in blockchain. It was at the time cryptocurrencies and other blockchain solutions were being developed and being marketed. So as part of that, Lewis said, I want to set up a society because I believe more people will be interested in this, and blockchain is something people would want to learn for their careers. So we helped him set up a student society called Blockchainers that's been going now over 3 years. And then as a result of that, Lewis got together with other students who were interested in blockchain and software, and they decided to set up a business together. So through that team dynamic of the student society, they then created a business. And now the society is working with companies like IBM to promote and develop blockchain. So those are all examples of where students have used different entrepreneurial skills they've learned to take different outcomes for their careers and their choices. Next slide, please. So just to give you an idea, what we provide. So we provide a wide range of activities. As I say, we have 26 electives which are available through our brochure, from undergrad through to postgrad and PhD. We have 9 academic staff who teach those courses, and then we have a whole range of competitions. And we are supported at senior level in the university. The university sees that making students understand more about enterprise and being more entrepreneurial is a good thing to do, because it produces more skills which are relevant for the economy or solving social or environmental problems. And as you know, the university has a very large goal around social responsibility, and a lot of the companies we support around the social side are aiming to solve social problems. So there's a number of other slides. I'll just go through a few more, and then I'll answer some of the questions. Next slide, please. Just in terms of numbers, the last 3 years we've set up over 132 businesses, which now employ over 1,000 people and turn over 20 million in turnover. We work closely with internal teams like careers, like business engagement, knowledge exchange. We have in all the 3 faculties, we have programs which are focused around entrepreneurship development. And then we have links with the student groups such as Manchester Entrepreneurs and Accelerate Me, which is a student group focused on entrepreneurship. And annually we create around 35 new businesses. Next slide. So I won't go through all these, but the slides from this point on are all about what we offer. So you can see some of the electives there around entrepreneurial skills, essential enterprise, entrepreneur, innovator, and risk taker. And you can check those out and see if those are appropriate for you. And then also you can participate even as a graduate up to 3 years out. You can still access our competitions, talks, events, etc., which are on our annual calendar and programme. So I'll just draw a close to the session there, and then perhaps if people want to pose any questions, I know we've got some in the chat, which I'll just have a look at.
Thanks for that, Tony. That was great. Yeah, we've had a couple of questions. One was from a student. Is it better to search for the worst or the most relevant and well-known sectors where you could find a gap in the sector and create value in the market?
What we always say is often the best place to start is either from a number of different angles. Either a lot of people start a business from a passion, and that could be a passion you have from a hobby or an interest, or it could be a passion you have to solve a problem because you've experienced a bad experience. It could be around the way you were treated when you were buying a product, or the way a service was delivered to you, or the way perhaps something has changed, not for the better, or you see something like, you see something that you think isn't fair on other people. Because often the key to a lot of the sustainability and the drive of businesses in the long term is that it's more than about making money. You have drive and enthusiasm, and you really love the subject, and even if you weren't doing it, you would do it anyway because it was your passion. We've had businesses created around that, so that's probably what I would say.
Right, brilliant.
Yeah.
And then the next one, I think it's around, I suppose, going back onto the networks that you touched on. Are there any platforms where you could find potential employees or people who want to contribute to your idea?
Let's say the one way is to get involved in a range of the competitions we run and the talks. Another is to join the Accelerate Me Student Society, because they are always having, but even down at individual level, like computer science have hackathons. the Graphene Centre is having a hackathon, you could organise your own. You know, if you feel that you've got an idea and you want to get a group of people together, well, why not organise it yourself? Just get together, post it, then like Lewis did with blockchain, as he didn't know people would be interested in blockchain enough to form a society, but that's what he did, and that's what led to him and some of his partners developing a business. So I would just start from very basic levels, and hunt people out. And a university campus is a great place to do that, in your halls, or post messages on social media and just see what happens.
What's your opinion of using something like LinkedIn?
I think LinkedIn is good. LinkedIn's improved a lot, but you have to be specific. You have to know what you want to do. You have to have the right profile. So what we encourage people who set the businesses up or business ideas is set up a specific LinkedIn for that. Don't just use your general LinkedIn. Post your idea as the headliner. Say that you're part of a university or you're student and you want to do something, and then encourage feedback. So you could put a story people could read about why you're trying to solve it, or you could post why you want to do this. But also look for other people. Like mentioned, networking. LinkedIn has loads and loads of groups on there of different things from, I mean, I remember once there was a project we were doing in terms of people who climb high voltage cables, and believe it or not, there's a group of people on there who climb high voltage cables. So I'm sure if they're on there or on other networks, there will be people who can help develop your idea or interested in your idea.
And students can always come back to yourselves if they're worried, or because I know we're in a bit of a time where online scams are a thing.
So the main thing is, I would always say, is never part with any money for somebody who asks you to develop your idea. Never ever do that. Because anyone who's genuine will help you for free, because they see the solution the same as you do. And the other thing as well is to just start small and do as much as you can for free, and always talk to other people, always socialize it. A lot of people get hung up about their idea and keeping it secret, but there's ways you can talk around an idea without revealing what your solution is, so you can still engage people with it.
Okay, great. I don't know if you'll know the answer to this because it's a bit specific, but just in case, do these units that you've shared here, do they apply to the 4-year entrepreneurship program in biosciences?
As I understand it, pretty much all of the FBMH courses you can take entrepreneurship electives. I would suggest checking it out with your supervisor or the course administrator in there, but as far as I'm aware, we offer those all the way through now.
Great. And I know we talked before about when somebody has an idea and they think it's a new idea, but you've seen this idea a million times. What's your advice for students if they do think they've got a good idea? Do they come to you first and then?
So there's a number of ways. The first is every Friday we have a drop-in session between 9:30 and 11. So if you email entrepreneurship@manchester.ac.uk and email that you want to talk to someone, you can get an invite to the Friday drop-in sessions. We have regular talks from business people, experienced and students who've just started, so you can join in those and get involved. Say Manchester Entrepreneurs Accelerate Me is a good source of support. We're always open to talk about ideas. I mean, just because it's not always necessarily the case your idea isn't valid. It's just perhaps the way you're looking at it isn't valid.
Yeah.
But we'd always encourage people to get up and have a go, because that's how you start. You need to start. And, you know, even if that's not the right idea or doesn't get off the ground, at least you've learned how not to do it, which is equally as important as how to do it.
Yeah. And I know that you mentioned to me that, you know, if you feel like there's a gap somewhere because you're not accessing it, it's doing a little bit of research as well to make sure that you've not missed that, and that those services aren't already on offer.
Yeah, the key thing is just do some preliminary research, just do some meta searching online and see what's out there already. It's better to have something out there that's already doing similar to what you're proposing than nothing out there, because if it's not out there, it means probably it's not valued and maybe people won't pay for it. It's very unusual that a brand new business is created out of thin air. They're all usually additions to an existing technology, like AI is an existing add-on to computer science. Everything generally that's been created is about innovating. That's why we focus on innovation.
Yeah.
Taking an existing idea or an existing issue or an existing problem and providing a different solution to it. Maybe space travel's the one which is probably newish,
newish, yeah.
Newish.
Yeah, it's I think, and I can say from many employers that I deal with on a regular basis, even if you don't set up your own company, I think these modules and electives are great just for developing entrepreneurial skills, because many employers now value the, you know, entrepreneurial skills. Like, they really add to an organization. And I think there's something that you can really bring to an employer. You know, just in my role within the university, I do a lot of business development. I'm reaching out to new organizations, which is, you know, it's a skill that you develop over time. And I see these more often now, needed by employers.
Yeah, I think a good example is vaccines. So vaccines had been left behind by a lot of the big pharmaceutical companies because they weren't considered to be the next thing.
Yeah.
The vaccine programs generally that were being done were in universities, and they were being done mainly by the scientists and the PhDs and the postdocs. And, you know, most of the big cures, you know, at AZ, Oxford, Moderna, BioNTech in Germany, they've all got a connection somewhere back to a university, which will ultimately be back to a group of students. So it even shows that huge companies like those need access to skilled people and need access to people who were searching for something and thought they'd had a solution, and eventually they found it.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's not just, you know, entrepreneurship is one of those things that it doesn't have to happen straight after uni either, you know, so it can happen at any time. It could be a slow burning idea that you're working on.
It can be. There's people who set up great businesses when they're older. It's not necessarily that you're going to do a Elon Musk, or, you know, those are the ones that are the outliers.
Yeah.
Most people do entrepreneurial things and they're very quiet and they don't promote it. But what they do is really important to the people they do it for, whether it's saving the rainforest, whether it's bringing people out of poverty and fair trade coffee, or stopping poverty, you know, by delivering aid programs or providing solar energy. Those people aren't heard of, but in their own way, they're doing more important things than selling social media sites.
And it can also really propel your career, because I know my husband, he started his own company with that similar with the Enterprise Centre at his university, and his business was a gaming studio, because he's a software developer. And the business went for about 3 years, and in the end they wrapped it up, but because they wanted to do different things. But he felt that that initial entrepreneurship opportunity really helped him to propel his career. So even though he's not pursued a career where he's run his own business, it's really propelled him up the career ladder.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, often most people will end up in a role where they are working for someone or working with them in a consulting way.
Yes.
So yeah, like Luke, he didn't launch his own business, but he's now delivering his skills in a huge business and making a bigger impact probably than if he had launched his own business.
Yeah.
So it's not always what you think, and that adaptability and seeing a solution to the problem in a different way is
it's not just a straight line, is it?
No,
it's
it's
not
not.
Just like
it's a bit more like a yacht where you tack with the wind.
Yeah, true.
As everybody in the world has had to do over the last 18 months.
Definitely. And I think as well, portfolio careers are becoming really popular, where having more than one career, so maybe running your own business and working for somebody else in a consultancy capacity is really popular.
Yeah. That's a great way of doing it, actually. Is we call it side hustle, and a lot of people start from a side hustle and start from an interest basis, and then build up from there. And then even if it doesn't get to a full-blown, you can still do other things, but still do what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
The greatest thing is if you can find the career or role that you really like to do and that would motivate you to get up every day and do something, that's the ultimate career choice. And it's not around money. Money is not really the primary objective.
And money will happen if you're good at something and you enjoy. The more you enjoy it, the better you're going to be at it, right? So if you follow your passions and turn it into a career, the money will come.
And you can do whatever you wish with that, whether it's giving it away, whether it's investing it, or whether it's using it for charitable purposes. That's up to you again.
Yeah. And somebody's asked around, is there a limit to how much you can apply entrepreneurship skills in a rigid workplace if you're working for an employer?
It's a really good question. And I think it's a relevant question. The reason I say it's relevant is looking at it in the reverse, in that when large industries were prolific and everybody was employed by them, of course, there was a sense of being part of the company and you had a salary and you had a job. But the problem was that built in inefficiencies to the point where they weren't sustainable. And then that creates downside issues in terms of unemployment and layoffs and redundancy. So I think the analogy we always use is if the big company's like a super tanker, like the Ever Given, your entrepreneurial activity should be more like a speedboat on the side of it. And you should develop the entrepreneurial bit and see if it works. And then if it works, you should introduce it back into the super tanker so it can absorb it and change as it needs. Change too quickly it can be as disastrous as not changing at all. So I think you've got to be really careful and use the benefits of agile entrepreneurship with the benefits of a structure of a company. And if you do the two well, there's lots of companies out there that have been around for a long time, Siemens, engineering companies. Look at the oil companies that are now transferring themselves into energy, solar, electric, hydrogen. They do things, they're innovative, but they operate within a big structure as well.
And they value creativity and creative problem solving.
Absolutely. And they are probably one of the ones who put most into encouraging innovative ideas and look externally more than they look internally.
Yeah.
You know, Shell Livewire and the other competitions they run are really, really good examples of that.
Brilliant. Well, those are all the questions that we've had
Okay.
today, and I think that's been really insightful. So thank you for sharing that.
Pleasure. Okay. Yeah, and if anyone just wants to contact us or see something in the rest of the slides, they can just log on to Entrepreneurship app, and then we'll respond to them from there.
And we'll next week we'll circulate a flyer with all the recordings from the International Connections Conference, including this, and we'll share those links as well. So you'll get those in an email.
Yeah. All right then.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Tony. Really appreciate it.
Then. Okay, good.
Have a great day, everyone.
Will do. Bye.